Hello, welcome to the Reframing Mindset podcast. We are clear-minded of the thoughts that are preventing clarity to practice my speech, among other things. Episodes range from informative knowledge to funny stories about my experiences, and in the future, maybe include interviews. So subscribe and enjoy. Episodes drop every other day. Okay, welcome back to Reframe Mindset podcast. My name is Connett Smith Brooks. And this episode is going to kind of get into why I rarely curse. Like curse word, things like the F word, if you know the word, and like sex and all those connotations. Why, if you have listened to the podcast, maybe recently now I'm more comfortable saying it, even though I rarely say it, or you might have heard me say it one or two times on my podcasts. I'm not sure, but people who would have known me, or whatever, would have known that you really heard me curse. And if you heard me curse, it would be like one of those rare occurrences. And I always have to go back again, to primary school and thing, So, back in primary school and thing, I had my aunt, as you would have known by now. And also, if you would have known and listened to the podcast, I grew up in a very Christian home, and cursing was one of those things that, yeah, it's a no-no. Like, there was one day now where we had the garbage truck, the garbage collector came in and took up our garbage. And you would have heard, they speak in profanity and all these things. And then my auntie would say, yo, it heard those things that he said, it's best not to really say it. It's not really good and thing. And I would say, yeah. And during those time now, again, back in primary school, my friends, they were not really as Christian like me, They curse and all those stuff. But I never did it and thing. But one of the things that they usually had over me was the fact that my auntie went to the school. So anything bad that I do, they could have it over me and say, yeah, I'm going to tell your aunt, I'm going to tell your aunt. And that was one of the things, that many people in the school had over me. They could tell my aunt. See, there was one day now we were at the primary school. There was this big tree, and we were all sitting there under the tree, and they were speaking profanity and all these things. And then me now always say, okay, I can say it too and stuff like that. And I said, no, you can't say it, because if you say it, we are going to tell your aunt, and that they, as I said, that they usually have over me. So usually when they keep on talking, and then I said the F word, and I always look at me and say, ooh, we're gonna tell the aunt. I was like, no, don't do it, or something like that. But and they act like say, oh, they not do it, but eventually someone actually told my aunt. I never know what, and we were in the class and stuff like that, and then my aunt would come when I was in grade 1 or such, grade 1 or grade 2, then I come to my class and say, okay, Colin, come outside. And I was like, oh, yeah, well gone. It's like, at the time, I never knew. I was oblivious. I never really know that they told. But when I went outside now, I said, okay, yeah, somebody tell me, say, you curse a bad word. I was like, oh, of course. But of course, yeah. So after that, now I got beaten, at the school, and I went in the class crying, bro, crying, and I was, as if you have listened to the podcast for a long time, I learned that I'm a person that very easy to cry, And when I went into class now, and they see me crying, bro, many of them were laughing. And there was nothing I could do, There was nothing I could do. I just stayed the hell. I've just stayed there. And it was because of that, you know, I really heard me curse and stuff like that. I really heard me curse. Until, like, from then, I think the first time that I cursed was when I was in grade 10 in high school. And it came out by accident. And it was so rare that when I actually said it, my friend, because also when I went in high school, I had a friend that speak a lot of profanity as well. So when he heard it, he said, "Yo, first I hear Colin, I said that I something like that, I know what's there." And it's like, you know, and that's because how rare it is to 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 hear me say it. And I think back then it was more of me holding it in, but more so now it's kind of me more getting more comfortable with the not needing to use it more. And I have better, I don't really like now I say it sometimes, but it's more you don't hear me say it out of my mouth. I'd hear me saying things like texting and stuff like that, kind of to get the point across and stuff like that. But you really, I think it's as I said, the actually, world finally um pressuring me into the ways of the world, But I really say it these days same way. I'm still the same. I did well in this phase of my life. I'm trying to become that person I like. And one of those things, ideally, would be a no profanity me, because to me, I don't really see the need. That's why one of my things that I tried, if you have listened to things, the episode about things that um, that prevent the average Jamaican from progressing, one of the things that I said, no, remove yourself from bad company. And that's one of the things as well that kind of I try to do to kind of help me stay away from that part. But in Jamaica, it's kind of hard to actually find legit rated companies, But ideally, my company would be all less profanity wise and more up in competent group, because as I said, profanity is used by people and I think I maybe heard it or maybe it was me said it, but profanity is people use by people who have a very limited vocabulary, and it's not me saying okay I have a vast vocabulary, but if you actually one of those persons that speak profanity along a lot, many times you can look it's due to your company. Your company is very limited, and thus your way of expressing yourself becomes very limited as well. But yeah, so that was the reason why you really misread profanity, because as I said, many people usually have my aunt over me, that anything that usually happen at the school or stuff like that, people usually have my aunt to really go to and say, okay, Colin did this. Meanwhile, they never had any parents or anything like that was involved in their life enough to say to when they do bad things that they get in trouble. My family was that way, where anything bad or whatnot, they would punish me or say, okay, yeah, you can't really do that or stuff like that. And that I think that's in looking at myself now, that's been pretty beneficial, because not many family really had many people have families that actually put effort in their school life or development life or anything. They just have them go to school and just do whatever they want, and they come out. If they come out and become worthless or whatever, they don't care. It's like they in their head they never really expect much from them either way. So that regardless the struggles that I had living in this family, thanks to them, I'm pretty safe. I'm not really suffering from corona now, and at my own place, it's majority thanks to them actually putting me on the right track. Yeah, so that you have to just take the good with the bad. So yeah, thank you and look forward for the next episode.
Well, this is the end of the episode. Thanks for watching and look forward for the next episode. To support this podcast, go to anchor.fm/cssb/support or become a sponsor for this episode. If you have a product that you want to have more exposure, DM me on the Instagram page, Reframing Mindset Podcast, or on Twitter at ReframingP. Either way would help. Thank you regardless for listening, and here's a preview for the next episode.
And I think this episode is a pretty important episode for me, because I started this podcast as a way to kind of, as I said, talk about some things on my mind to kind of clear my head and get myself into the right mindset. Hence the name Reframe Mindset Podcast. And that it has been a very therapeutic experience as it allows me to express myself, get some things that are on my mind off my mind, so that I'm in a better place to kind of make better decisions about myself and stuff like that. And I think this story is a very important story for me, for my growth, because it's one of those stories that up to this day I still try to deny it. I still try to deny it because